I want to start this episode with talking about Goliath, because Goliath at La Ronde was genuinely one of the most surprising coaster experiences I've ever had. I cannot believe how much I loved it. I cannot believe how underrated and overshadowed this hypercoaster is. Most people may wouldn't even call it a real hypercoaster because it's below 200 feet. I never really go by that rule. I go by like the style of ride. And unapologetically, this coaster is a hypercoaster style ride, which is airtime hill after airtime hill after airtime hill. It has a nice flow to it. It has a good length to it. And it really kind of shows you that you don't need to have record-breaking heights to have a good hypercoaster. I think this may generally be my favorite B&M hyper. That's how much I liked Goliath at La Ronde.
It's such a fun and satisfying ride. Like, it's obviously like not very big, and it's also the last one for us to ride. It's the last operating B&M mega coaster left for us to ride. And so it was nice to end on a high note. It was a great ride. You know what else would have been a great ride at this park if they had actually followed through with building it?
Would it be
Speaking of Viper, yeah. Speaking of Magic Mountain influences, I think a lot of people know this, but I do want to talk about it for the people who don't know, and B, because it's a good place to talk about it, because we won't really cover it in the episode because it doesn't exist. But Green Lantern at Magic Mountain was sent to La Ronde and was supposed to open in 2020, and they got as far as laying footers for some of it in a plot of land that is now a parking lot. But like, they tore those footers up. They gave up. COVID killed that project. That was an easy one for them to cancel, because I think it was even kind of ill-fated from the start, because man, that ride had a bad run at Magic Mountain. And I always joked that like they sent it to Canada because they have free healthcare, and that ride is like voted most likely to send you to the hospital. So I'm kind
honestly,
of
the whole idea of that ride even getting a second home, I mean, it was too weird to be true. I was like, this is like almost too much even for La Ronde, which is the graveyard of coasters in some regards. So that was wild. Andy, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you're listening to another episode of Coaster Kings
Radio. Oh,
and today's episode
I almost said Coaster Kings Radio. I knew I was going to do it eventually.
We're 10 plus episodes into the new season and we're doing this. Anyway, you're listening to Coaster Kings, formerly Coaster Kings Radio. And today's episode is about Canada's second largest theme park, which doesn't mean a whole lot, because when it comes to theme parks, Canada is not
the distant second too, because Canada's Wonderland is such a beast.
Yeah, so Canada is not like the playground of theme parks like many other countries are, but it has like a few theme parks. Anyway, so today's theme park is the second largest amusement park in Canada, and La Ronde was actually originally built for the Expo 67, the World's Fair amusement park. So that opened in 1967 in the city of Montreal, and they ran the park until 2001, when they actually sold the park to Six Flags. Now, Six Flags operated the amusement park until this year, 2026, and as part of a larger sale of all the parks in the portfolio to EPR Properties, La Ronde was also sold to EPR Properties. The only difference is that in this case, a different company purchased La Ronde to operate, so the operating rights. So EPR Properties does own the park, and just like Circus St. Louis, Worlds of Fun, Michigan's Adventure, like that whole sleeve of parks from Six Flags. However, the operations are being taken over by a separate company, La Ronde Operations, which is pretty much just created to operate La Ronde and a couple of other smaller attractions and parks in the region.
Yeah, like some water parks and stuff.
Yeah, water parks, some smaller entertainment facilities, which makes sense to me. I actually honestly didn't even realize that the park was still sold to EPR Properties. I just thought that it was completely like a separate sale.
But like EPR
but
owns so much, and there's a lot of stuff that they own and don't operate, so it kind of works for them.
Yeah,
I went through like their little list of things, and they just own a ton of stuff, just all sorts of stuff. Typical venture capital firm kind of thing, where they just own all these assets.
I feel like it doesn't always end up going that well. I keep thinking of like the SeaWorld parks and the Busch parks, and how they just go through like these venture capitalist companies, and they just pinch every penny out of it. And the park experience has been on the decline since Busch gave up on it. So I don't know. I don't ever really think of that as that positively when it comes to like non-theme park companies owning theme parks, because they're just there to get money out of it, which generally speaks, it means that the experience isn't great. But I have hopes for La Ronde, mostly because I think La Ronde is kind of an underdog, and I think the bones, I mean, they're the Expo 67 bones, but the bones are great. And I was overall just so pleasantly surprised by the way it sits on the island in the middle of Montreal with a bridge, and it was just overall such a pleasant park. And I mean, it's not like a nice park. Don't get it twisted.
It's a little rough. It definitely feels like a city park. Like it has that city park vibe where you can tell like, oh, like the money ran out a while ago and the government is just kind of like inching it along. Like it's like just limping,
also it was
limping its way
Six
across.
Flags owned, and it was a Six Flags owned and operated theme park for the last 25 years.
25.
So that is, 25 years under the Six Flags name could do a lot of damage. So,
especially, I mean, even for a good park, it's tough being Six Flags. But man, La Ronde,
let alone La Ronde.
People argue about if like Astroworld or Six Flags St. Louis was like the real like underdog stepchild of Six Flags, and it's like neither. It was La Ronde, but at least La Ronde is still open. So more than we can say about poor Astroworld.
And one of the reasons that we wanted to go is because we wanted to use our Six Flags passes while we still could. And I picked up a work layover. Some friends of ours also flew in and met us there. One of them also on a work layover. So it was honestly kind of great because it all just kind of worked out timing-wise. Alex came with me as a passenger and then went with their friends as a passenger to go back home or to work, whatever it was. And so the four of us went. Daphne and Drew are good friends in Atlanta. They
Daphne flew Drew and I back home on Delta, while you went back to San Francisco.
So that was good. And then one of the reasons, again, like I said, was the season pass usage. But another really big reason is, and I think a lot of people that are familiar with Montreal or with, the history of the fireworks show or the firework competition, is that one of the world's largest and most prestigious firework competitions is hosted at La Ronde every year. This is the 40th year. Now, my French is not that great, but l'International de Feu Loto Québec is the name of the competition. And every week in the summer, a different country that makes it to like the big final round, I guess, displays a 30-minute firework display. And you can see it from places inside the city, but it's really meant to be seen from inside La Ronde. And there's this giant stadium they built that's temporary. And then they have these 3 layers of fireworks. And the country that happened to display on the day we were there was China, which is so uncanny because we love China, obviously. And so we're like, what?
And China Chinese fireworks, like, hello.
I know. It's like, this is meant to be. It was meant
to be.
When we started watching the show, which we'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of the episode, but a little Chinese team came up and they all did the little raising the flag and sing the Chinese anthem. Cool. And it was like the coolest thing because like it just was perfect for us. It was just perfect.
So like, are they doing this for us? Do they know?
Yeah.
Somebody knew.
The fireworks show was so like impactful that like now it's a tradition already. We've only been
now we need to go to La Ronde every year, basically.
So now we've all agreed, all 4 of us, that every summer we are all going on a work layover to Montreal. We're all going to go and do La Ronde for the fireworks competition. And at this point, it pressures off on the rides anyway. I would love to, re-rides on some of the good stuff, but pressure's kind of off. So we used to be more like a vibe and hanging out and like eating beaver tails and watching fireworks. And honestly, I'm so down for it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Eating a beaver tail every 2 hours.
We ate way too many beaver tails, but
There is no such thing
No
as too many
shame.
beaver tails. Oh
No
my
shame.
god, that's so fun.
makes me want to go for like a little bike ride to burn it off.
I know the what was it one that we got? The avalanche, I think. The one that was like the cheesecake icing and like caramel. And so, oh my god!
No, but my favorite was the apple one, the apple cinnamon one.
The
I thought
apple
that
one was
pretty good. We should get that one
really
next time.
good. Yeah.
Speaking of good, the park's rides were surprisingly good, and we're gonna do a little park tour. Now, this park makes no sense, and that's one of the discussions I will have later. Is that the layout
is
definitely
it's not a very
out
big
and not
park,
laying.
but
It makes no sense.
It's like a crescent shape.
Yeah.
And the two ends of the crescent are physically very close to each other, but they're not actually connected.
Like,
and there's
tell me
no
why I did not
transportation
realize until we're inside the park, we could not do a full loop around the lake.
Yeah.
Because the Ferris wheel and Vampire or Titan, they're like really close together, and there's like a maintenance road there, and there's a parking lot road. Except for there's no pedestrian walking area to go to the two sides of the park.
Yeah. It's technically all backstage is where they set up the fireworks, and there's just like, to my knowledge, I don't think they've ever had a like just a standard pedestrian midway there inside the park. It's always been like making people go to either ends of the lake. And I don't know if it's ever going to be realistic for them to change that, even though I love the idea of it. But with the fireworks show set up all happening there, at the very least, it's like they'd have to close the midway at like hours before the fireworks shows so that they can set up the shells. I don't even know how far in advance they do that, but
they were setting those up when we were writing stuff early today. So
so
I mean, at least like 10 hours before the show.
Yeah,
that's so much work.
Yeah,
because I cannot believe how much work goes into a fireworks show. I mean, the amount of fireworks launched is 30 minutes.
Just like a solid 30 minutes of nonstop fireworks,
like 3 layers of
little
fireworks.
Fires being started, like a little fire that started underneath Ednor.
And it does turn that park, like, I mean, it turns the whole city upside down, because like the big bridge that is over the city or over the water closes down. All the roads on the island close down. Across the river, like on pretty much like the mainland, there is all these areas to watch. The whole bridge is just filled with people. I mean, it attracts millions of people a year. It's really a much bigger deal, I think, than I had quite realized. Like, I knew it was a big deal, but then being there and dealing with the antics of trying to leave after the fireworks show.
Oh my God.
That took us like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get back to the hotel. And it was one of those things where like you could physically not get a car to the island or out of the island. So we had to walk for like 30 minutes with massive thousands of people on the road. We're all walking to the metro station, which was really well staffed, but there was long lines just to get tickets and to get out of there. It was quite the experience, but I had such fond memories. It was just we're all in this together kind of thing.
I just felt like we were witnessing something really great and participating in a really culturally significant thing for the city. So it was awesome. It was our first time to Montreal, both of us, all four of us, really. We'd never been to Ronde, and I really felt like I experienced something special about Montreal by being there for one of the firework presentations. But yeah, we overall, I mean, we already had a great time at the park, but that doing the fireworks show just put it over the edge. We bought tickets in the bleachers, and they weren't that expensive, and it was just so nice to sit for a good 45 minutes and just hang out and watch the fireworks show unobstructed. It was amazing.
Yeah, I will say that like if it wasn't for the fireworks, it would have been like, all right, we'll come back in a few years, see what the play is up to, maybe a new coaster, but the fireworks show alone really is that big enough of an attraction. And I understand when people travel from all over the continent to go see it, and in some cases the world. And so now it's like, well, if I just go for the fireworks and the coasters are there, it's a perfect solution, because I will say I did enjoy a lot of coasters. So let's start talking about the rides. Is this okay with you?
Okay. So we started with March of the Millipede, which is in French, and I don't know how to pronounce this correctly in French. Sean, do you have...
Okay, I'm going to try it. Okay, ready? La Marche du Mille-Pattes, I think,
March of the Millipede in English, but yeah. If you're listening to this and you speak French, I'm really sorry.
Our apologies.
Any attempt that we make, I'm not brave enough to attempt, and Sean is brave enough and will do a heck of a lot better than me, but still probably far from perfect. Anyway, so the March of the Millipede,
according to the
was the
lady at
number
La
one
Mostra, yes. Remember, she was like, "You sound so American." I was offended.
yeah. It's shit, and they'll humble you. They're so nice there, but then they're like, "Your French is not good." You will try your very best.
Anyway.
You think like, "Oh yeah, I can convincingly speak French," and then they're like, "No." Anyways,
the French will be like, "You don't speak French. You speak, Quebecan or whatever, Quebecois, whatever."
Quebecois. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
So March of the Millipede was our number one priority, even though it is the kiddie coaster. This is a very significant ride. It's one of the only remaining original attractions to the park. The kiddie area has 3 little aero development, little kiddie rides, a little trio. There's like a little tracked car ride where you like ride in a locomotive. There's a little round river raft ride, like a miniature rapids ride kind of thing. And then the kiddie coaster. It was one of 4 aero mini mine trains ever manufactured and one of 2 left operating. The other one is the mini mine train at Six Flags over Texas. And for a very long time, I think for decades at least, because I had never heard anything other than this being the case until like a couple years. And it used to be that adults couldn't ride the March of the Millipede. You had to have a kid. Probably related to like maintenance costs and stuff because you have this ancient roller coaster. I mean, she's 60 years old this year, right? Like, am I doing the math correctly? 1960, or it's her 60th season, right? 1967 would be season number 1. So we're up to 60. So like this ride is on its 60th season. And it runs like a dream. It doesn't really have supports. The whole thing is terraformed and the track sits right on the concrete footers. So like it is a delightful attraction. The park has a whole, like all the fixtures and stuff from the original like opening of the park in 67 is very concrete, like mid-century kind of brutalist sort of vibe. And the kiddie coaster is no exception. It like everything is concrete. The station platform is concrete. The bridge over the drop for the queue and like exit, it's all concrete. But then it's painted bright green and is themed to a millipede. And it is just the cutest ride. Like I was just dying when I rode it. I was so happy and so excited. And one of the reasons why I didn't even want to go to La Ronde for the longest time, or I guess why it wasn't high on my priorities, was because I really wanted to ride this vintage kiddie coaster and I knew that like we wouldn't be able to ride. And then a couple of years ago, our friend Mark, who's from Quebec, was mentioned like in passing, like, "Oh, adults can ride March of the Millipede now." And I was like, "Oh my God, really?" So then it was like, okay, like we can go. It's time to go. And we also really needed to go like before they demolished another coaster because they used to have a Vekoma corkscrew and they used to have an Intamin stand up, and both of those got demolished in the back half of the 2010s. And it was a bummer missing out on those. And I kept thinking like, oh, well, we'll go when they add another coaster. And then VPR got announced and then canceled. And it's like to this day, they still have not added another coaster since 2010. So, and we were like, we better go now while we can get in with our passes. Like, this is the time. The time is now. We can ride the March of the Millipede. And it was amazing. Maybe someday they'll get another coaster, but who knows when that could be. So like the time was now.
I mean, I'd like to believe that they would get another coaster because there's like 2 prime plots. And if you look how Cobra and Vampire set together, or Vampire, I think it was like a really nice setup. And it feels kind of weird now looking back at photos of it. I feel like, it could totally be another coaster there. They were really nicely placed together.
Yeah, they looked great
and now it kind
together.
of feels like that midway just kind of goes around the back of Vampire.
Well, they turned it into the boneyard, so it looks like literally looks like a dump, and it's such a visible area because it's right up by the bridge. So they took a ride plot, like a very visible, high traffic footprint ride plot, and turned it into backstage, except that like it's completely visible from everywhere and it looks really bad. And one of the big buildings, like that whole area that used to be like a loop and now it's a dead end because they fenced off like the portion of the midway where Cobra's entrance was, and like the buildings, the old Expo 67 buildings on that side. So
but speaking of that side of the park, I think we should continue the tour there because it's kind of like one of the dead ends, and we can work our way all the way around. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Vampire first. So this is one of the 3 Batman clones that is mirrored. So we talked about this a little bit in the Six Flags St. Louis episode, because St. Louis is mirrored, and then so is the one at Six Flags Festa, Texas. What's the name again of it? The new Chupacabra, I think.
Chupacabra,
so,
yes.
Yeah, which is a great name, by the way. So
I love it.
Those 3 are all mirrored. And it actually kind of works for this one because it's mirrored. It sits on the midway in such a way that you face the water when you do your drop into your turn drop. But then from the midway's perspective, it all sits on the midway like the way it was kind of meant to be, with the station and the lift hill on the backside. Now it's very clearly a Batman, not just in clone, but just in colors and in aesthetic. It even has that like classic later era Batman station, like Six Flags New England and Batwing at Six Flags America, rest in peace. And so it's just funny to me that Ronde has 2 rides that were clearly designed in every way possible to be themed to a DC Comics character, where they were going to just kind of like Discover Kingdom, like play with it and then eventually just like do it. Now, they never actually did it, but they did build the rides with the color schemes and the architecture, and then doing a Bat-themed vampire named ride is like as close as you're ever going to get to DC licensing without doing DC licensing.
Even the logo has like a very Batman sort of logo, Batman, like iconography.
So in all intents and purposes, it feels like you're on a later Batman where they didn't care about theming as much. Practically none.
Yeah, like what they did for Six Flags New England, or not New England, Six Flags New Orleans. Their whole little Gotham City area that was really just like flat rides in a corner with like no theming.
Even Six Flags New England, which is a good point because it uses the same station, even though it's a floorless coaster, same kind of aesthetic. There's no theming. It's just a Batman theme or a Batman
and like the Superman Ultimate Flight coasters having like this sort of Art Deco style station with like little info tidbits about the characters, but not like theming, not real theming.
Yeah. Which is something we discussed in our previous episode, Six Flags St. Louis. Listen to it if you haven't yet. Where it's like, well, even St. Louis was kind of later on in the game compared to the originals. And even there, the drop off in theming is kind of noticeable. Now with like neglect over many years, it is down to practically no theming. At least I feel like the presentation of Vampire was much nicer because it was pretty well maintained. There was grass, lots of grass actually. I saw beavers in the ride, which is kind of fun.
Beaver tail.
And the color scheme. Yeah, and the color scheme was like, nice. It wasn't like a bad-looking ride. It was just really plain.
It had the same. I found out that it had the same exact color scheme as Batman La Fuga at Park Warner Madrid. Like even the wheel covers, they have like that tricolor wheel cover, exactly the same.
Which is so funny because then like La Fuga is one of the best themed Batmans, where it's like a real experience. Like you go through this crazy long queue and the theming, and then even exiting, there's all these thematic pieces. Like that's one of the nicer themed Batmans. And then this one, besides the color scheme being the exact same, is one of the weaker themed ones. But again, it's not officially Batman. But it ran well. I enjoyed it. It was really intense. I think it was more intense than I'd realized. It was very intense. Like Six Flags St. Louis level intense. I don't know if it's like a reverse clone thing. I don't think that's really how science works, but
does it have a shorter train? Is it like a little 7-car train on this one?
Ooh, no, I believe it was 8, but you can double check.
Because the 7-car
ran really well.
Like Chupacabra runs so fast. And you would think like, oh, it would be faster if it had a longer train because of like more momentum. When really a shorter train, it means less drag. Yeah, Vampire has a 7-car train.
Oh, maybe that's why. Does St. Louis have 7 cars too?
No, St. Louis has 8.
Oh, so weird. That one's super intense.
Yeah. I think it's a coincidence. I don't know if it's not related even to the one that's being turned around like in mirror image, because Batman La Fuga is also 7 cars. It was just something they were doing later. All of the like post 2000, all the Batman clones that were either constructed or purchased by Six Flags after Six Flags Over Texas did theirs in '99. They all ended up with 7-car trains because the one in Fiesta Texas was of course like they came from Six Flags New Orleans, and then but originally it was Gambit at Gotemba Thrill Valley in Japan, and I think it opened with 7 cars there because they just didn't need the capacity of like an 8th vehicle. So I think that one was just kind of like a coincidence. But Vampire would probably be the same story where they're like, well, we don't need like an 8-car train on this at this, for them, it was just not going to be like necessary for capacity. However, they were running the ride with 2 trains on our visit, and the ops were pretty good. Not all the coasters had good ops or multiple trains, but it was good. It was a good overall experience, that ride.
I will say, I think you can kind of tell that both Vampire and Goliath are like the 2 most popular rides, followed by Monster. But Goliath and Vampire ops were really good because, especially for most of the day until it was close to fireworks, it got kind of weird because the only ride open past like 8 p.m. because of all the fireworks prep was Goliath. So it got swamped with like hours of queue and all these switchbacks, and then stuff started happening on the platform, and then the line for the accessibility got super long, and people started arguing and fighting on which roads would be used. No more grouper. It got really kind of sketch at night. But it was like an overload of people. Like the only big ride open the whole park was Goliath, and it was a freaking shit show. And staff was not able to handle what was going on. Trains were like not going out quick enough because there's drama on the platform. But besides that, all the entire rest of the day, like the first, I would say 8 hours of operating day, Goliath wasn't even stacking. They were getting these trains out so fast. I was so impressed with the operation.
Lickety split.
I was like,
and it was nice to see. And Goliath's a short ride. It's not like they have that much time to get the next train out. They can't really send the. In fact, at one point they were waiting, weren't they? They had to wait until the train is approaching the final brakes. Otherwise, the block isn't clear. So, there's literally 3 block sections on this whole ride. So, yeah,
and it's a 9-car train. And so the capacity of that thing is just a beast. 36 passengers per dispatch, and they were never stacking. They were just rolling. I mean, for a second, because we bought the fast pass, I guess you should mention that we brought, was it the Access Rapide or whatever?
Access Rapide.
We bought that, and then we were like, man, do we even really need a Goliath? At the beginning we did, then like later we were kind of merging in the station. But I was more just impressed with the fact that they were pushing these trains out and really hitting capacity. So overall, it was still it was just impressive to see.
It was a good value still, the Access Rapide. There's a couple of coasters in the park that don't have it. But for the ones that do have it, like, it saved us a lot of time on Boomerang. It saved us a lot of time on one half of Monster. Obviously, it was the difference between getting on Goliath a third time, because the third time we rode Goliath, the line was so long, like we would have just had to skip. So our night ride on Goliath only happened because of Access Rapide.
The first and the third time we rode Goliath, we needed it. And then for Vampire, we for sure needed it because that line was long. Vampire was popular. I mean, I will say that side of the park has one coaster. So
and a lot of these merges are right in the station. So it's like, it'll save you a lot of time.
It was worth it. I would do it again next time.
Yeah, for sure. But that was another reason why we started with March of the Millipede, because that one doesn't have it. And we wanted to get there first thing before the line got really long. It was a strategy that would have benefited us if we had done the Wild Mouse first too, but the Kiddie Coaster was a better priority. And then the Wild Mouse had like an hour-long wait all day, and we were like, "Well, fuck it! Like, we're not wasting our time doing this." It got even worse at night because when it was like the rides were starting to shut down by the lake, that also ended up getting a massive line. It was just there was no feasible way for us to go and spend 2 hours. So there was another reason to go back to Ronde is we left a credit on the table.
Yeah. And I will say the Zamperla ones are uncomfortable, and they were like sometimes dispatching with 1 or 2 people in it. So it was one of those things where like you just knew that it was terrible. Yeah. So it was all right. Before we move on from the Vampire area of the park, that little cluster of rides, this park, just like every other Canadian park, is a flat ride dream. There's so many flat rides in this park, and this little section here is Vertigo. It has Volo Team, which is the kind of like it's a Skyscreamer, but without the Skyscreamer branding because it's Ronde. They have I love that
they call it Ultimate Flight, like Superman Ultimate Flight, but it's
true.
But the French version.
Titan is a giant Zamperla, the giant Discovery, and they did so much branding for it, and it has like a giant statue, and it was like pretty much the
Very
nicest
popular.
dressed up one in the Six Flags chain, and it was so popular.
Mhm.
I mean, it was maybe the longest queue for a flat ride I'd seen in a long time.
Yes.
So that was kind of nice. And then our Beats is their shot and drop SNS tower that sits on a little launch pad in the water in the lake. It was kind of cool. Now, when we were about to ride, it shut down and it seemed to be down for a little bit, so we left. Daphne and Drew, I think, came back later while we were taking photos of some stuff.
Yeah,
but
they
we didn't
came
end up
around it. They
riding
said it was okay.
We'll ride next
You
time.
know, it's an old tower. It's not super intense. I bet the views are cute though. And then they have Vertigo. Did you talk about Vertigo already?
I mentioned it, but I didn't talk about it. Yeah, the SNS.
It's a little one side
Skyhawk?
of the little Zamperla hammerhead.
Zamperla, sorry.
Yeah. Which that ride is so obscured from view because the trees are like so surrounded, and it's on the backside of what used to be that little midway loop. It used to sit in between Vampire and Cobra, but with Cobra closed, the midway just ends. So the midway is sort of like this question mark shape, and Vertigo is the only ride that's past Vampire on the question mark. And then it just
but it's
dead
like
ends.
significantly
So,
past it. Still,
you wouldn't know that it was there. Like it was. I thought it was abandoned at first, and then it was open with riders later in the day, and I was like, oh, it does still run with people.
Yeah, they really need to do something about the loop. It needs to be a complete loop again. I don't care what they do. Maybe even do like a really small little sliver to Volo Team. Whatever they have to do to make that more of a cohesive, because that side of the park is so weird. And then there's a singular restroom stall for like the entire side of the park.
The bathroom capacity is it's super inadequate.
This park can really use an Armchair Imagineering episode.
Mm-hmm. And they have the disco, the disco round that has been there since like 1986. That is a classic. That's their Huss breakdance.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry.
And it's like right in the middle, and it's like elevated and like really like a major focal point looking flat ride, or at least it was at one point in time. It's still very popular, but
it is nice. Yeah,
that's one of the oldest rides there.
And there's so many trees around, so it all looks quite good. So let's head to the side of the park that Boomerang is on. So Boomerang really feels like it's on its own little area of the park now,
little plaza too, with its 2 flat rides and
because Super Manege is gone, and so there's like a pretty big gap between Monster and Boomerang. Now Boomerang is one of the nicest boomerangs in the world. I mean, it has a classic like expo aesthetic, but it's been upgraded with a new station and new MK12 soft trains and track reinforcement. And the color scheme is very classic, like gray and dark blue with really light blue trains. It's just really clean. Like they did a really nice job kind of preserving.
Brakes too.
Oh, true. But yeah, they did a nice job preserving that aesthetic. So I was actually really happy to see.
Yeah, that ride looks beautiful. If the whole park looked like the way Boomerang looks, this would be a different conversation about this park.
Yeah, in fact,
Boomerang is looking sharp.
This makes me realize, like the last few episodes, like when we're talking about U.S. or North American parks, we've been talking about like what aesthetic a park should focus on or what identity. I feel like that could be its own episode because La Ronde should really just focus on becoming like an Expo World's Fair kind of park. And really focusing on that aesthetic from the 60s, the weird architecture, almost like Epcot-y. And then stuff like Boomerang is like already perfectly done. And I think if they focused on that all the way through, it could be such a distinct aesthetic, matches like the Montreal kind of vibe and the bridge that's over the park. And then for St. Louis, that whole Mid-America thing we talked about. I think La Ronde could really be something really special if they put the effort in for that.
They should also really lean into the whole fireworks thing. I feel like fireworks should be like the theme of like the entrance plaza. Like that should just be like fireworks iconography everywhere because that is so significant. And it's such a huge part of La Ronde's
like 8
identity.
Nights in the year, though.
I know, but it's 8 big nights, and like the city shows up. It's such an event. It's such a to-do.
God, it was such a vibe. Yeah.
It was so cool. Over by Boomerang, they have 2 other little flat rides. They have Chaos, which is their Larson loop that was briefly installed at Six Flags Great Adventure. right next to El Toro. And then they El Toro it out and gave it to Ronde. And then they also have one of those like fireball rides, the inward facing swinging pendulum one, like almost identical to the one like at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, for example. And that's always been like a little 2 flat ride and the boomerang sort of coaster corner there. And then like Sean said, you have this big gap that used to be where Super Menage was and where Vampire or Vipère was supposed to go. And then they gave up on it and put a parking lot there. Just like super lame. Yeah. But yeah, next let's talk about Monstra. Because Monstra was awesome.
So
I didn't really know where. Yeah.
Because I think you were the original fan, and then I became the hardcore fan.
To this, I was excited, but I was cautiously excited, and it actually blew me away. That was a really fun, really cool, pretty darn well maintained ride. I mean, this is a huge ride. This ride is so physically large; it's like mind-boggling. It's got 2 tracks. They don't run together. They never really have. That was never the point. It was always about like getting 2 coasters for the price of 1 big superstructure. In fact, this would have been a good fun fact to put at the beginning of the episode, because this isn't actually that particularly well documented, but I found a video actually from the opening year of the ride that illustrates this. The second track of the Monstra didn't open until a year later. So they had the first track open, track 1, operating, and the other side of the track, even though they're right next to each other at times, was still being constructed while the ride was open. So like they opened, had their summer season, and then after the season closed for the winter, the second track was then brought online. So that would have been 1986, which is just a fascinating way of doing it.
Please remind me, which side is track 1, which side is track 2?
The first one we rode is track 1. So the one that has access rapide, only one side has it, and that was the side that we rode first, and that is like the gentler side and the older side.
Now, one thing I want to mention to the listeners is that the differences between the tracks could not be any more different. I couldn't believe it. It's like 2
so
completely
for rides that
different
look so
coasters.
similar. They are 2 totally different rides.
And they just share a structure. Yeah, it's
because
like
you get 2
you have to
great wooden coasters that are quite different in one attraction. Like we waited an hour to ride the second track, and it was still worth it. This poor park, they're running 1 5 vehicle PTC train per side, and it's a huge ride. So like the line moves very slowly, but there is 2 of them, so that kind of helps. One side is the access rapide side, and the other side is the side that gets the ADA and exit passes and stuff, so it kind of evens out. But yeah, the second one I was so blown away with. I think a lot of people agree that track 2 is the better track. I don't want to give away too much, but it's pretty much well understood that like you will go to Ronde and you will wait in the standby queue to ride this thing again, even if you used your access rapide to ride the other side. It's like, no. And you're not even just doing it for the credit. You're doing it because the other side that does not have access rapide is the better side. And it's just awesome. And they run so well. They've spent a lot of money working on the track of this ride, and it's wild. It's rambunctious. I just love that it runs PTCs. It opened with 7-car Morgan manufacturing trains. And when they went down to PTCs, they had to drop the capacity by 8 people because PTC trains are a lot heavier. Morgan trains are like plastic. So they just sort of, you need the body weight of the guests to do all of the work. And I think they have another pair of PTC trains. I've heard of them. They weren't present. I didn't even see them in the maintenance barn when we were there. But I think they have a red train and a brown train or something. We rode the green train and the yellow train.
Maybe I should do one of those like side-by-side video reels for the promotion for this podcast, so that way you can kind of see how different they are, because they're so different.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to mention real quick.
Yeah.
So I want to mention that there's a couple things that stood out to me, and I'm thinking of right now, so I want to mention them. One is that the ride is so much bigger than I had imagined. It is a colossal wooden coaster.
Yes.
It is one of the biggest wooden coasters in the world, and people just don't talk about it. It is so big.
It has such a great presence.
The first half is super elevated, so the first drop is like suspended over the park, and it doesn't go all the way down. It goes maybe like halfway down, but it's super elevated, and it's so impressive. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I'm still in awe thinking about the presence that monster has, and despite nobody ever really talking about it, and because nobody really talks about it, I was really kind of thinking, oh, monster's gonna suck. I'm gonna be like, man, I'm gonna not like this that much. Well, I could not be more wrong. Besides the pacing being a little weird, everything about his ride is a little weird. I was just so impressed, and I will say the park must have been putting money into it because a lot of track was redone, a lot of retracking. I wouldn't say at any point did it feel painful. It was enjoyable enough that even the parts that weren't retracts, I seemingly enjoyed. We did ride both in the front for both rides, but that's my biggest takeaway is that it's very, very large and much larger than I expected, and the layouts are really strange and both different. And it ran pretty well. Like the retracking worked. There was a lot of new track. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just a really standout ride. Just left such a strong impression. Being so pleasantly surprised by the first track and then being even more pleasantly surprised by track 2. It's a great experience.
We rode in the right order, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we rode the second track in Sunset. You're over the water.
And then we would have been like, the other one's better.
Yeah. No, really, this was, I mean... And not just those things. I also find the ride to just be highly unique. I've never ridden a wooden coaster that felt like this.
It's crazy. So it's still got the skid brakes, which is a classic feature, and it needs to keep the skid brakes because both of them start with there's a little section of skid brake that the rides finish with like this really sharp like S maneuver, but there's skid brakes in between, like in the center of the S's. So like you're wrapping up. You do a sharp left, like you're already kind of turning in a circular motion. This ride is like 2 hurricanes right next to each other with just like bands of wooden coaster track swirling in each direction. And as you're approaching the station, your left turn that you're making gets sharper, and then you hit this tiny section of skids, and then a really sharp right turn, and then the long skids. And it almost looks like this was something that was done later. Like maybe they needed to like smooth out, iron out like this S turn bit and like slow it down part of it to make it work. But it's always been that way.
Back if it wasn't there. Yeah.
It's always had this little, the skid brake, this little section of it at the front of the brake run can't be more than like 3 or 4 car lengths of skid brakes. Like you couldn't fit a train there. It is literally just trims. And it's like it's in such a way because like you couldn't really do it on a turning piece of track because the track is too sharply positioned. So it's like a turn and then the little straightaway of skid and then another turn and then the final brakes. It's just such a fascinating. This is a Bill Cobb designed coaster. It's one of the lighter Bill Cobb coasters, and it's just a fascinating ride. Like just it's such a
Bill Cobb did Tornado, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was one of his early. That was sense. One of his first independent designs.
Bill Cobb just like Tornado
did a lot more oddball stuff with wooden coasters. John Allen was a little bit more straightforward with the way that he developed coasters, things like Screaming Eagle and Great American Scream Machine, but Bill Cobb was a little bit more edgy, I guess. He liked elevated sections of wooden coasters and catching people off guard. He didn't always want to take the drop all the way down to the ground. He would kind of keep you elevated for a little bit and then surprise you with a huge drop like halfway through the ride, like that kind of stuff. That's like
that is exactly what I wanted to say next, actually, is that I know earlier I mentioned that the first drop only goes like halfway down and it feels strange and then it just hovers over the park. However, there are surprisingly massive drops on this ride that seemingly seem to get bigger and bigger. And I was just watching back a video right now on my phone that we filmed with our glasses. But I was like, oh, let me just kind of refresh your memory on track 1 versus track 2. And that you had that weird little overbank right after the first drop where they're both kind of going up. And then for track 2, dives down all the way to the ground. That's where track 1 doesn't really, but track 2 has a massive drop after that. It's like insane. And then it has that like double down, and then this ride is phenomenal. I am such a fan. A couple episodes ago, I kind of talked shit about Tornado at Adventureland.
You were not that big of a Bill Cobb fan until you rode Monster.
Like, Bill Cobb who? But now I'm like, correct, sir. I stand corrected. For sure.
Bill Cobb was a very important bridge between like the Philadelphia Toboggan Company, John Allen era of wooden coasters, and like the Din Summers era of wooden coasters, where we got into like the late 80s and then the early 90s with stuff like Predator and Mean Streak, Texas Giant, Hercules, Cyclone at Magic Mountain, like that kind of stuff. And there's not very many Bill Cobb coasters left. The Rolling Thunder at Six Flags Great Adventure was definitely like a precursor to the Monster, because it was a racing track wooden coaster, and they were parallel to each other the whole ride, but they were different. They had like a mirrored first drop, and then after that, like the profiles were totally different, and they were basically like two tracks jumping in alternating patterns, and like even the turnarounds and stuff were a different shape and stuff. Like Bill Cobb was into it. He liked the idea. Like he saw John Allen do all of these double track wooden coasters where they were just mirror images of each other, and his plan for doing something like that was to create two totally different, or at least partially different, somewhat different wooden coaster experiences, instead of just basically doing two of the same ride. So he was way ahead of his time in that regard. He was really like an early champion of like the dueling coaster, where it was like you had two coasters and they were interacting with each other and like racing, but they had two different layouts. They weren't exactly the same. So, and even though Monster doesn't duel, it was never designed to. And even if they accidentally would have dispatched at the same time, they deliberately wait until the train is halfway through. And part of that is to protect their investment. Another wooden coaster that is very similar, that reminds me a lot of these rides, is La Montaña Rusa at La Feria Chapultepec, which is no longer with us, but like it was a massive double track wooden coaster with these big, huge, heavy National Amusement Device trains, and like they would not dispatch them at the same time, because having both trains hitting the valleys and the peaks at the same time would cause like exponentially more stress on the ride, and then lead to a much greater expense with maintaining the ride. So even if they really wanted to race the ride and they felt like that was like a part of the experience, for Monster it really isn't. And also they just can't, because they need to protect their investment with all the track work that they've done.
Yeah, you're right, because it was kind of funny. I think at one point one of the exit gates wasn't closed quick enough on track 1, but both trains were kind of ready to roll. So track 2 dispatched, and track 1's operator was like frustrated, because she's like, yeah, my train was ready. I just needed to close my gate. Like now they had to wait like a whole minute or something in order for them to dispatch. And the train was just sitting there with people ready to go. So for a fact, you must be onto something, because I remember that altercation being kind of like operator 2 hit the button as soon as that exit gate closed. And operator 1 was like, dude, like our train was ready way before yours. It was just an exit, because it was like exit pass thing going on. Yeah. And so I remember being like, oh, wow, so like they really cannot dispatch at the same time. They had to wait until like track 2 was like almost finished in order to dispatch track 1 again. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty interesting. Another thing that's interesting about the superstructure, before we stop talking about Monster, is that it uses like a crazy cable system with those giant, almost like Eiffel Towers in the middle of each turnaround that hold the whole structure together. It's such a weird ride. Like, it's so weird.
Another ride that did that was famous for that, was the Riverside Cyclone, Six Flags New England. Now Wicked Cyclone, of course. But like it's big, like intersection, interfield with like that was like definitely a stylistic precursor to the Monster. It was designed right before. It opened the year before. They were like pregnant with Monster right there when they were designing that ride, for sure. It had the same like suspension cable setup network. I mean, this was classic Bill Cobb. This is like really his legacy. I think of all the operating Bill Cobb coasters left, Monster is definitely the one that was like, this was his baby. This was Bill Cobb's Screaming Eagle. It was his magnum opus. And it's just nice that it's so maintained so well and runs so great, and that it's running PTCs. I'm sure the Morgan trains were fine. There's lots of Morgan coasters that we love, obviously, but I'd love the heft of a PTC. It just comes just flying, just absolutely flying around on this ride.
No, I'm glad this doesn't have Morgan trains, because I will say I never found the Morgan trains particularly that comfortable. That was kind of like folding your legs, and especially the ones that have those singular bars that they push down very far.
There's ones that are likable and enjoyable, but like I'm not like, oh, I just love Morgan trains. For me, it's more of a nostalgia thing.
Yeah. So I think we should move on to the other far end and kind of work our way back a little bit to kind of finish with some more interesting stuff.
The other side of the crescent moon.
Let's talk about Le Grand Rouille, the Ferris wheel. That was a really strange situation, because I guess that they used to load it like a traditional Ferris wheel, but then they started doing these like individual queues for every car, but then one car didn't have a queue, so like it was kind of a hot mess express. I don't know what they were doing there.
Yeah, one car didn't work out very well. They had like 5 entrances to load 5 cars at a time, so it was 5 individual lines, except for the middle one, which was closed off and became the designated exit. So they would take people occasionally from the other lines to fill that middle car, or they would use it as the exit pass car. So I don't know. It's especially convoluted and time consuming.
But the problem was is that you
classic Ronde.
It was busy, and there was a line that was stretching the actual queue, and then you get into this plaza where there's the 4 gates which have their own queues, but then in the middle of that there's actually an exit. So in order to leave the ride, you have to kind of climb your way through the queue in reverse to leave the ride.
Yeah,
it was just kind of a hot mess. Like, it should have been regulated better.
Yeah.
Or just put the exit on the other side like every other place in the world.
Not well organized.
Yeah. But the views were amazing. The breeze was breezing. We got some great photos.
We love our Vekoma
of
wheels.
Vampire and Goliath. And it was just pleasant because the weather we had nice weather. It wasn't too hot. Wasn't too cold. It was breezy. Were we wearing pullovers? No, we were just wearing shirts. Yeah, it was nice. It was the perfect day to go
hot. It was so hot for Canada there. It was like considered a crazy heat wave.
Ooh, it wasn't that hot. It was super nice for us. I feel like it was just like nice and breezy. I feel like at night it could have probably even worn like a hoodie or something.
Yeah.
Right? I don't remember being that hot.
Well, I thought it was hot. Well, maybe not. Yeah. Or maybe they had just had a heat wave. I can't remember.
And so, next up, I want to talk about Etna Latak. Oh, no, actually, no, let's talk about Dragon first. The Dragon is so strange. Can you explain to the people what Dragon is?
That's another freaking weird coaster. So if you're familiar with Six Flags Great Adventure, you've been to Six Flags Great Adventure and ridden Skull Mountain, this ride is almost the same. Same ride system, same basic premise of like an indoor coaster with like the station is outside and that's it. This particular ride system is a Intamin family indoor coaster, and like that is the ride system. They didn't build very many of these. Great Adventures is by far the most notable one, and then followed by this one. And it was cute. It went around twice. They only have one train for it. It uses tire-driven lift. It's got some effects on the inside. It's like really cheesy, like dark ride effects and stuff on the inside. It was really pleasant and fun. This is another attraction that does not have access rapide. Technically, there's 4 credits in the park that don't have it. Dragon, March of the Millipede, the Wild Mouse, Toboggan Nordique, and then 1/2 of Monstrous. So this is my PSA that like access rapide is a great value, especially if you like flat rides, because all the flat rides have it. All the big ones anyway. But you do have 4 credits that you need to get like the old-fashioned way. So prioritize those 4 and try to, get those in. The Dragon was the second coaster that we rode. Because after we decided to take the loss on Toboggan Nordique, we were like, well, let's go get over to Dragon and ride that before the line gets crazy long, because that's another like kind of low capacity coaster. It was cute. It was fun. It was not like the most spectacular, not really like one of the more standout coasters there, but just another fun, like unique, quirky ride that is a nice addition to Laurent's like collection of very eclectic rides. And then right next to it is a Vekoma SLC.
Yeah, so,
which is so funny.
Which Yeah, it is funny to have an SOC in the same park as a Batman clone from B&M. That has always been kind of funny to me.
And
But
the
you know
Batman
what?
clone came 8 years prior. She was first.
But I will say, it kind of works. And you can tell that Ronde can support both. They're both popular. I mean,
They are both popular.
Ednor may be a little bit shorter line than Vampire, but Vampire also sits on a desolate little island where that's the only major ride there. That's where Ednor is riding to Goliath. So I can kind of see why maybe Ednor doesn't get as much of a long line anymore.
Ednor has really cute aesthetic and theming and stuff around it too.
So it's themed to like kind of like a Loch Ness Monster kind of sea creature. It lives in the lake or the waters inside La Ronde or around La Ronde, I guess. It's like an actual legend, local legend, right? Like in the Montreal waters.
Was it really like a thing, or did they make it up?
Or did they start with it?
I think they just made it up, but I mean, I think it's cute.
I think it's a great theme. And then they use this marketing for it where there's like posters of like almost like an oil derrick sticking out of the ocean. And then like Ednor is like the ride that's like intertwined with all the machinery and all the pipes and all that. And I've always kind of dreamt, like, if you go by like an oil refinery and like, I don't know, El Segundo or something, I've always been like, man, I want that in a theme park. It would be the coolest theme.
Yeah.
And even though Ednor doesn't have that actual theming, the marketing for it is like enough work for me. I'm like, yeah, that's so cool. Maybe I'll post a photo of it if I don't forget. But they actually did a decent job of like doing this little themed queue, and they take a bridge outside to the ride. I thought they did a really cute job. They must have used some sort of previous infrastructure and did like a nice indoor like museum kind of thing.
Ronde has a lot of like old infrastructure, and most of it is not actually being repurposed the way that it could or should, but like some of it is.
Like for Ednor?
With Ednor and Dragon, they're like in the little Camelot area of the park, and you can tell that like none of those rides were originally there. And the buildings are super old and kind of falling apart and like have vines growing all over them, which like it kind of adds to it, but then it also just kind of feels like part of LaRonde's overarching like issue with upkeep. So
now I will say Ednor Latak, I personally was very pleasantly surprised. I thought it ran really well. SLCs are the hit or miss, and while I'm usually on team like, oh, I like SLC, that's not a secret. I must say that generally speaking, this was actually a really nice SLC. I didn't really have to focus on putting my head anywhere. I wasn't bouncing around. There were no rough transitions. I think for SLCs go, this run's like one of the better ones. It's about as good as it's going to get. Yeah. I think it's in the same kind of framework as Michigan Adventures SLC. We rode another SLC recently where I was like, this thing is good. What was it again? What SLC did we ride recently that I liked?
Nopuco
Air Coaster? That was a real one. No, the Puco Air Coaster I liked, but it had like a clear damaging moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, I thought it ran great. And despite it using old trains, I don't even really feel like it needs new trains. I thought it was fine. Yeah, I would have ridden it again if the rest of the team was on board. I think we were planning on riding it again, but we just kind of
ran out of time because of how busy stuff got. Like,
and
as
we were
the
taking photos,
wore on,
which took priority. But we have some great photos of it, so I'll post them on social media and on the coasterkings.com. But yeah, Ednor overall, yeah, I liked it. One of the nicest SLCs, and that's nice.
The funny thing about this ride is that like the reason they added it to this park at all is because there was a contractual obligation with Six Flags for LaRonde to get a certain amount of financial investment over a certain period of time. So they put the coaster in because it was worth, $10 million, and it was something that went toward their annual like money that they have to spend on the Ronde kind of budget. Not because they actually felt like it was a good fit for a park that already had a Batman clone. Because really, SLCs are
also kind of like that.
I guess so. I mean, and Goliath to a fault. It was just after the recession, it was just like, well, we still have to give LaRonde something. Like we need to give them something that is objectively valuable. So they got this SLC.
But then my question is, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Whatever.
So being there, I really felt like it was very lively. Everything was well staffed. There was a lot of food booths and food locations. They were all well staffed. Yeah. And there was a lot of people there, maybe because they know it's a firework day and the hours were a little different. But I will say overall, I wasn't like, oh man, this is like a failing Six Flags park. Sometimes you can just tell these parks don't get the attendance they used to.
There was lots of people there that seemed to really care about this place and like this place.
Yeah, like it was busy. Like it was like pleasantly busy. Like there were long lines for rides. All the flat rides had long lines. There was people all over the midways. Everyone was eating and drinking. I mean, I thought it was a really healthy amount of people there. Um, I thought they did a pretty good job getting everyone into the park, because when we got there was a long line of people. It was like, I was kind of scared. I was like, shit, how many people are here? Like, are we even gonna have a decent time? But yeah, I thought they could handle a crowd. So I'm a little bit surprised that Six Flags, and I always kind of gave them like, kind of the throwaway rides, the, like I kind of called it early in the episode, like the ride graveyard where it just ends up at Ronde.
Yeah.
As where I feel like the park could support and does deserve major attractions. I think it's almost maybe like Canada's Wonderland, where Paramount didn't really care, short operating season, whatever, throw production models at it. And then Cedar Fair came in and they said, like, well, the potential of Canada's Wonderland is unmatched. And look at this, like now it's a destination. It is such an amazing theme park now. I really wonder if maybe Montreal can support that too. And maybe there really is a future for Laurent in the right hands to be kind of like the next Canada's Wonderland. Because to me, with such little choice and Montreal being a major city, I would feel like there's totally room for another Canada's Wonderland. You know what I'm saying? Some of the countries like,
Canada's
like
Wonderland is like 7 hours by car from Montreal. Like they do not have an overlapping market at all. So I think people love this park. We've got some followers from Montreal that love this park and are very protective of this park. And she looks rough. Like there's just a lot of derelict stuff there. But man, like there's so much potential. The bones are great, obviously. And they have a great lineup of rides. They have a nice roster of rides. A well-rounded collection of attractions with some like great like staple coasters, high capacity stuff, some really unique stuff. I mean, they've got 2 great wooden coasters, 2 great B&Ms. There's a lot to love at this park. And then the food's, like you said, the food's not bad. Even though we mostly just ate beaver tails, but they're like just irresistible.
Well, that Greek flag,
and I thought the staff was really nice.
Terrible. I thought so too.
I think like there's a bright future for Laurent. I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. I don't want to jinx it and say that like it couldn't possibly be any worse than it was under Six Flags. Like it can only get better, because like I could eat my words in a couple of years if that's not true. But I like to think that going smaller with management oversight with this park is going to be a good thing. I need the people making decisions about Laurent to be people who live in Montreal and like go to this park and take their families to this park.
The park has good bones too, so I feel like there is a lot of opportunity here, because the work that needs to be done isn't overpowering. It's not infrastructurally a lot of difficult work. It is mostly just like beautifying the park, maybe adding some much needed investments in like large attractions. But it's not like, I didn't think the park was that bad. I didn't think it felt that derelict. I just think that maybe infrastructurally it had good bones, but it was a little dated. Restroom infrastructure, of course, is stuff that needs to be improved, but none of it's that big to tackle, because I thought that stuff like the rides, like Ednor, Vampire, Goliath, I mean, they were all in good shape. The queues and stations were all right. I mean, they can maybe use a little bit of TLC, but why can't, I just didn't think it was overall that bad at all. I mean, it's not a nice park. It's not
maybe
like
we just had our
expectations
polished, low, like where they needed to be for us to really enjoy the park, because there's a lot of abandoned structures or just stuff that is sitting and waiting to be offered a purpose. Some stuff is kind of inconspicuous. You think like, oh, it's just a building that like they're not using right now, or that like we didn't go into, when really it's actually an abandoned building that is like hasn't been used in years and years and is waiting to be. Something needs to be done with it. There's a lot of that there. I mean, they still have one of the stations from their old Sky Ride, like their Von Roll Sky Ride, which closed in 1983. And the station is still there on that little outer midway loop between Boomerang and the entrance of the park. And stuff, I'm sure it's used as like an employee break room or something, but there's just stuff like that where it's like, wow, like there's definitely buildings here that not only do they not serve their intended purpose, but they're not really even being utilized adequately for like the size that they have and the location and stuff like that. So
also, I want to mention to you real quick, Remember that weird building with that turret, that like really swirly building? That's where Cobra used to
be.
Over there. You know,
Over
that's
by
actually
Cobra.
like, that was actually the Ancient Aquarium that was part of the park. And there's a fascinating issue. I won't get into it. But at one point, I guess that like the staff of the aquarium was protesting and was on strike. And they didn't feed the animals. So like 3 dolphins died. It was a whole thing. And they closed the aquarium. So anyway, I just made the connection.
That was in like the late 80s.
Yeah. That's so wild.
Well, Ronde has had some dark times. They've had some sad times.
The aquarium buildings are still there. They're just not being used.
Yeah.
But they're, so that building used to house dolphins. Isn't that crazy?
It's insane.
Fun, fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not a great
all that
setup,
to say, I love this park. And I feel like people are so quick to like ridicule this park when really like people should be sympathetic about this park. And like it's not the park's fault. Like there's just being operated by a company that didn't really care about them for a really long time. And when things like the recession and COVID happened, this was a park that was forced to take it all to the face. But they're like, there's a lot to love here, and there's people that love this park, and there's great rides, good company, and it's just, and this fireworks show, like there's just so much, like I just can't help but like want to defend this park. It's like I'm aware, where everybody is acutely aware of the flaws of this park, and that seems to be what gets talked about the most with this park is like the flaws, and that's like, well, it's been talked about. It's not anything new or interesting. I feel like what's interesting about this park is everything about it that's so great, and like why, like what this episode has been focused on.
I think one thing we haven't actually discussed yet officially, except for as the opener, is Goliath. I think it deserves a little bit more, just like a little bit more discussion, especially because we're nearing the end of the episode. Goliath, I mean, again, like I mentioned earlier, star of the park, super underrated, may even be my favorite B&M hyper. It's God. There's just something about that ride. There's something about the flow. There's something about the flat turnaround. There's something about seeing water on both sides because you're kind of going towards the end of the island and back. Even though there's a parking lot there,
the views from the top of like downtown is so stunning, right?
And like all the water and the breeze. And we rode it during sunset. So we were riding a little into the sunset. It was such a fucking I don't want to use F words because then I get an explicit rating, and we're already another explicit episode. It was an amazing ride on that at night also. And what did you want to talk about? Like, is there something you want to add about Goliath?
I just love it. I just love the vibes. It's just so pleasant and just likable. It's delightful, and I don't know. It's like such a fascinating, it's hard to describe, but when we're writing it, I'm just like exhale, like chill, relaxed, likable coaster. And just such almost like hypnotic with like the repetition of the hills, just a totally different kind of approach to a coaster compared to like what you would normally expect. Especially from like a hyper coaster where there's certain expectations about what a ride does. It reminds me a little bit of Steel Eel, but it's not as like intense as Steel Eel. It's not like super crazy. No, I think it's like Steel Eel is kind of punishing. This is like a more relaxing.
Goliath, at La Ronde, Steel Eel, and then Goliath, the Walibi Holland are all kind of in that like, oh, we're only 150 foot tall, but we're like, we beat the piss out of some actual hypercoasters kind of thing. Because these are just rides that prove you don't need the 200-foot mark to be a good hypercoaster. I still find that sometimes I find it almost agitating when we post the coaster. Like I posted the video of Goliath, right, like La Ronde, and then everyone's like, well, it's not a real hypercoaster. It's not a hypercoaster. And I'm like, guys, to me, hypercoaster is a mood, To me, hypercoaster is a vibe. And this is the most hypercoaster vibe you can get.
Like, I promise you, 200 feet is totally arbitrary to anyone that does not use...
It's not, like, American anyway.
Imperials. Like, in the metric system, 200 feet is just another number. So, it's all about what a coaster seeks to provide. Which is why some of the best examples, like Goliath at Walibi Holland and Steel Eel and Goliath at La Ronde, are not 200 feet, and there's still such great rides.
And then let's take a look at what else we want to discuss about the park. So we already talked about the fireworks competition. Now, I guess we go into detail a little bit more on it. So how it works is that you can watch it from several places in the city, of course, and you can watch it inside the park. And in order to watch it inside the park from a designated viewing area, you can buy like tickets for it, and some tickets are like a little bit nicer than others. But for just $12, you have like a general seating spot, and you can watch the fireworks show. And I would recommend doing that. We got kind of lucky, and we sat pretty central without realizing that we were so
seats.
central.
I mean, we were kind of running late with our Goliath ride there at the end, and like we were sort of rushing and thinking, like, because it's kind of like first come, first serve when you buy that general seated admission. So when we got there, we were like,
walk all the way. Yeah, you have to walk all the way over to like the front of the park.
Yeah, we were on the opposite side of what we needed to be.
Yeah,
when
to
we
get
got
in
off Goliath,
and
we were like, oh crap.
But I did buy the tickets for the fireworks show early in the day when there was no line at the ticket booth. So I was like, this is a good time to buy them.
That was a good
call.
That
worked because we walked straight in. We didn't have to like wait in line to buy tickets and then go in. And yeah, I mean, I will say be ready for a lot of smoke inhalation because you're just sitting like in this
debris.
Yeah, oh my God, my shirt was like stained in ashes from the fireworks show. But man, I cannot believe how in your face it is. You're just mere meters away from this phenomenal firework display that just goes on forever. And it's like I said earlier, like the 3 stages, like the 3 layers of fireworks. And it is really intense. And there's fire people all over the park. A lot of park is closed off. Majority of the park is closed off. At first I was like, wow, really? You're going to close the parks early? But then like during the fireworks show, I felt like Orbeats, Thumpier, like they were just being hit with fireworks repeatedly. Like they were just being blasted. Like they were just on fire.
That ride just gets pummeled with fireworks.
I cannot believe how much fireworks
we're just watching the little
rides.
Fireballs like bouncing off of the ride and getting caught in the catwalks and stuff, and like setting the brush on fire underneath the like just
there
just
was actually
surreal.
A pretty major fire. At one point, there's all these fire guys like running across the stage area. I'm thinking to myself, "What the fuck?" Sorry, again,
but there was just such a. But then there were times where I was like trying to watch the show, but I couldn't help but also watch the fire getting larger underneath Ednor, and I'm like, are we about to witness history? Like, is this coaster, is the SLC going to burn down today?
I was literally thinking the same thing. I was like, man, this is a big fire. Like, at this point, it's so distracting that like
some of the team members from the Chinese team ran over there. Like, we were right by like a walkway, like the center walkway where they went up to like to the judging panel area to view, and like 2 of them took off running past us, and we were like, oh shit, like this is, I mean, like what's happening?
It got to the point where the fire was big enough to be like distracting from like one of the world's largest fireworks shows. There's fireworks everywhere, but somehow this wildfire inside the park is now getting so large.
Because I kept thinking, all I could think about was like, wow, I'm really glad we got the credit today, because this might be the last day.
I was really thinking, like, is this like historic? Surely it must happen all the time, because the amount of fireworks are just like I said, launching into the park's infrastructure and launching into the rides. I mean, it was nonstop fire just bouncing off of attractions. Like,
that had to be something that they thought about when they put that ride there, because it sticks out really far into the lagoon, and it's by far the most like present of the rides in the park when you're watching the fireworks show.
It's steel, if you're
it's
launch,
it's obviously not an issue.
It's not going to do anything.
That coaster's the 17th year that ride has been there operating concurrently with the fireworks show. So obviously it's not a huge issue. But,
and again, it's also one of those things where it's only like 8 nights or 9 nights out of the year where they do this whole firework thing. So it's not like Ed North's getting blasted like through 365.
It's not like it's happening every night. Ed North's just getting sandblasted by fireworks every night. It's all like singed and covered in soot and sulfur.
Legendary. I'll never forget being like, oh man, the rides had to close early. Like, but then, like seeing the show, I was like, man, this whole side of the park is unsafe.
That makes
sense. You cannot be near it. It'll all be on fire. It was a wild time, but that was so memorable. Like, I can't wait to see the rides bounce fireworks again next year.
Yeah, me too.
Operations were actually not that bad. Everything was running multiple trains if it could. If it could, so Monster could not.
Literally everything about this park just feels like it's just a problem because they've been starved for money. Like they are not getting the capital that they need to run a smooth operation. Like everything can be fixed at this park with just like adequate money to spend on upkeep and good direction, good organization. Some person in management who knows what this park needs and knows how to put the right money in the right places to boost the overall product.
Having said that, I do feel like Ronde is like really iconic. Its location, the city is iconic. Its World's Fair status is iconic. So I'm really hopeful. I think you guys got to clean it up. They got to work a little bit on the color palettes. They got to work a little bit on the aesthetic, on operations. Maybe add a major attraction that is gonna sell tickets. But then they already have like really cool architecture and really cool things going on there that are so, classic World's Fair that I think it's not that hard of a fix. I really don't think so.
They put in like a little family coaster in that where that parking lot is, where Super Menage was. Something, even at just some off the shelf high capacity family coaster, like that would sell tickets. Yeah. They've been doing a lot of dressing up of the kiddie area with like the dinosaur theme. And they've spent a good amount of money on that and like the landscaping and like remodeling all three of those old aero rides and like keeping them in good operating condition. Like this is the kind of park where like some landscaping, some new bathroom infrastructure, cleaning things up and then putting like a family coaster in would like change everything. You get people back into this park,
not that
and
hard.
If you can get people in your park and say like, oh yeah, I'd buy a pass here. If you can make your park as pleasant as it can be, the way like people would want to come here all the time and just and like hang out, like that's the only thing that Ronde is missing is like that level of like polish and comfort and feeling like it's somewhere that people want to go to like every week in the summer.
But I also just think it's like a quintessentially Montreal experience. It is like part of its identity between the fireworks show and being on the island in the middle of the city. It's one of those things where like it's not like, oh, it's gonna be a park that just may get closed down at one day. It's like an edge town. It's really like an iconic, integral part of Montreal. And so it deserves a little bit better, but I also feel like it could be done between subsidies and maybe a management and ownership that cares. This park is not that far off from being like a really great park.
It's like a few $1 million.
I felt like there was heart
away from being like great.
Yeah. I just felt like there was like character. It didn't just feel like another chain park to me. Despite having kind of like the Six Flagsy aspects of it, and like you tell the Six Flags,
you can tell there's history there. You can tell that
plate,
it has an interesting story.
Yeah,
it's a lot older than like parks and it's similar styling. Being from the '60s, most of these parks that Six Flags and Cedar Fair, all that are like from the '70s, or even Canada's Wonderland is from the '80s. You have Ronde, it's one of the oldest regional parks in the country because it's only 6 years younger than Six Flags Over Texas. It opened the same year as Six Flags Over Georgia. It's even older than Astro World in Houston was. So, like, you could just tell there's these glimmers. There's like these little flashes of brilliance and history and classic stuff that it's like it's all there. It all just needs to be supported and watered and landscaped, and like they could be there pretty quick. You could get this place in like on another level in like 2 years easy with the right management. It wouldn't even cost that much money. It's not like this is a park with like nothing to do. I feel like the hard part is what they've already got, which is a nice collection of reliable coasters and a nice collection of reliable flat rides and like a nice kiddie area. Like there's so many things that they already have going for it. So I just don't think it would take much. And I'm really hoping that that's what's happening in the next couple of years. And like the next time we go, whether it's like next summer or in 2 years, like we see local management having an impact on the park and like what it needs.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I just don't think it's that far away. I don't think it needs that much work. When you think about investments, I think aesthetics and cosmetic things, you can get a lot done with $2 million. That's why that always surprises me when, like, especially the sleuth of Six Flags parks that feel so neglected. I was like, how do we get there? You know, like it doesn't cost that much to keep these parks nice. And I feel like the classic Cedar Fair parks or California's Good America is a great example. Have really been like proof of that. Like it doesn't take that much money to keep these parks really nice. And I feel like Six Flags just never cared to put that money in. And that's, you can tell Ronde. Yeah. But at the same time, the upside is it doesn't take that much money to keep it nice. So hopefully they just cosmetically just clean it up, and then man, it doesn't even need that much.
You could spend $12 million on a coaster, or you could spend $8 million on like a smaller, cheaper coaster that's still marketable, that you would still get a really similar return on investment, and then take the other $4 million and like put it into everything else.
Fix all the bathrooms in the whole park. Yeah. And that makes such a difference because everyone's going to use restrooms at some point. That's why I always find it so fascinating when restrooms are, you know, like California, Sicker's Great America is a great example because you can compare it so easily to California's Great America, like what could have been. And then you're like, wow, like I really wish these restrooms weren't absolute shit. And
another great example is Discovery Kingdom versus California's Great America. They're in the same.
And I will say Discovery Kingdom still has some of the nicer bathrooms because of its infrastructure that comes from the Marineland days, or Marine World days, I should say. But I do still find it one of those things where it's like every single customer in your park is going to use the restroom at some point. It is the easiest, guaranteed, a good impression to make because every single customer is going to use the restroom at some point. You know, you can put all the money in the throw ride that like grandmas and kids aren't going to ride, so they're not going to be impressed by it. But if they're going to use the restroom at some point, so like make it nice. I don't know. I'm not even like a restroom snob per se, but I just feel like it's so neglected at some of these parks that it's shameful.
It's just such you're right. It's such an easy way to make your guests say like, I'd come back here this year. I would upgrade to an annual pass. And that's what these parks need. That's what they want.
When I used to be like, when I used to work for a hotel near Magic Mountain, and then we get Europeans or Asian tourists coming, and I was like, oh, how's the park, blah, blah. And they would always mention how terrible the restrooms were. And I was thinking, really, that's what you focus on?
Yeah.
But now I'm older, and I get it. I focus on the same thing now. I'm like, why is the restroom terrible? Okay, this is not supposed to be a restroom episode. So it's not La Restroom, the episode.
La Restroom. That's the name of the episode.
I'm dead. That would imply the whole park is done.
I know. That would have the opposite connotation of what we're trying to convey here.
Yeah, we're trying to show people that Ronde is worthy of your visit and worthy of your time, especially during the fireworks competition. Yeah. And maybe we'll see you guys
like
there
there's
next
still
year.
Time left in the season. If you're thinking of making a run up there because it's the last year that your Legacy Six Flags pass will get you in, go.
Let me see when the last day for the fireworks show is. I think the last fireworks show is August 6th. So that's the launch day of this thing, I think.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Maybe the day after launch for this.
August 3rd. Ironically, I'm in Tampa right now for work, and the weather has been very sad.
On the 5th. Yeah.
And rainy, and it's like Tampa is like weeping for Kumba, which closed yesterday.
So dramatic. So dramatic. Okay. Anything you want to add about Ronde?
No, that's perfect. We killed it. I love this park.
Yeah.
I think people know that we love this park.
And I look forward to visiting next year. And I hope everyone else decides to visit either this year to use their Six Flags pass.
Yeah, go to Ronde.
Or show up next year and do the fireworks show. And just have a good time. I mean, Montreal is a great city.
Because Ronde
the park is great. And while you're at it and you're feeling good, maybe leave 5 stars, like review on like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening. Don't forget to check out a lot of other North American content. We've done Sick St. Louis, Worlds of Fun, Adventureland, Lost Island,
Silver Dollar City.
Thank you. What else did we talk about this season? We're going to talk about some of the SoCal parks. We did a cheeky little SoCal trip, 2 cheeky little SoCal trips.
Yeah.
One
and we have a third coming up in the fall to go ride Fast and Furious.
Oh, true. And then we also need to we're going to Texas next week. We're going to make a short trip out of it.
We have 2 Texas trips coming up this year.
Because
we're going to do
what do you
Dallas.
mean the parks in Texas are going to weekends only, like early August? I was not ready for that.
We're going to Dallas
we had
and
to change
Oklahoma
our plans.
City.
Yeah.
The third weekend in August, and like Fiesta, Texas, and SeaWorld are already down to like one park is open one day and one park is open the other day. And then they're like Tuesdays, they're both closed. It's like, mother, you guys.
Okay, so we're going home. So I'll move my doctor's appointment to one of those days. Now that we're free.
That's okay, because we're going to do Austin and San Antonio together when Codaland open, which is going to be really soon, but they won't say when, and it's probably not going to be in like 11 days when we're going to be in Texas. So.
And we're going to go to Wild, Belgium sometime this month, and then
go say goodbye to
Korea.
Weirwolf.
We've got so much coming up, and I still have to record all those episodes about China.
Too.
So there's so much stuff. I feel like we have way more to talk about than we have time to talk about it. It's a good problem to have.
Yes.
But eventually, all this will be online, and we'll just see you guys every Wednesday for another episode of Ghost Kings. All right. Bye.
Bye.